In 1784, a royal commission in Paris investigated Franz Anton Mesmer, concluding his theory of animal magnetism, an invisible fluid flowing through all living things, was nonsense. His cures came from imagination and suggestion, not real medicine. They thought they'd debunked a fraud, but they'd actually discovered something far more important: the immense power of attention, expectation, and psychological influence to alter human consciousness and behavior. Today, we don't talk about animal magnetism. We talk about algorithms, engagement metrics, and AI systems that capture and hold our attention. But the mechanisms are strikingly similar. If Mesmer were alive today, he'd recognize immediately what's happening to us. Let me explain what Mesmer discovered, why it matters now, and what his insights reveal about our relationship with artificial intelligence. Franz Anton Mesmer practiced medicine in Vienna and Paris in the late 18th century. Patients would gather in a darkened room around a wooden tub called a baquet, filled with magnetized water and iron filings. They'd hold hands, creating a circuit. Music played. The atmosphere was charged with expectation. Mesmer would move among them with magnetized wands, touching specific points in rhythmic patterns. Patients would fall into crisis states, weeping, convulsing, entering deep trances. Many reported being cured. Mesmer genuinely believed in animal magnetism as a physical force, but what he'd actually discovered were three powerful psychological principles. First, the power of focused attention. By creating an environment of intense concentration, dim lights, music, ritual, Mesmer helped patients enter altered states where they became highly suggestible. Second, the power of expectation. Patients came believing they would be healed. This belief itself became therapeutic, the placebo effect. Third, the power of social contagion. When one patient fell into a trance, others followed. The group amplified the individual response. Consciousness was contagious. The Royal Commission was right that animal magnetism didn't exist as a physical fluid, but they missed the deeper point. Mesmer had mapped techniques for systematically influencing human consciousness. He'd discovered that beneath our rational minds lies a layer far more susceptible to external influence than the Enlightenment like to admit. When you open a social media app, an extraordinarily sophisticated system goes to work. It's been tracking your behavior, what you click, how long you pause, what makes you angry, what makes you share. It uses this data to create a personalized feed designed for one purpose: keeping you engaged. You experience this as free choice, but the system is running thousands of micro-experiments on you in real time, adjusting, testing, optimizing. It's creating a feedback loop between your attention and its algorithms. Mesmer would recognize this as a digital version of his baquet, the circuit of attention. Just as Mesmer's patients held hands, we're all connected in vast networks where attention flows from person to person, creating self-reinforcing loops. The altered state, that feeling when you look up after 2 hours of scrolling, disoriented, wondering where the time went, that's a trance state. Your normal sense of volition was suspended. The optimization of influence. Mesmer adjusted his technique based on patient responses. Algorithms do the same with millisecond precision and billions of data points. They learn your psychological buttons, emotional triggers, and cognitive vulnerabilities. But algorithmic mesmerism is more powerful than anything Mesmer achieved. It's ubiquitous. Mesmer's clinic was a specific place you chose to visit. The digital baquet is everywhere. In your pocket, on your wrist, in your home. It's invisible. Mesmer's sessions were theatrical. You knew something unusual was happening. Algorithm influence is designed to feel natural, frictionless, like your own choices. It never stops learning. Algorithms improve continuously, getting better at influencing you with every interaction. It has no therapeutic intent. Mesmer believed he was healing people. Algorithms are optimizing for engagement, for ad revenue. They're not trying to harm you, but they're not trying to help you either. They're just optimizing. There's a subtler form of digital mesmerism, the hypnosis of convenience. Consider navigation apps. You probably use one regularly, even for familiar routes. It's convenient. It saves time, reduces anxiety, but something gets lost. You stop learning landscapes. Your spatial memory atrophies. Your sense of orientation weakens. This is happening across every domain where AI offers to think for us. Writing assistants, recommendation engines, automated decision-making. Each promises to make life easier by removing cognitive effort, but in accepting that ease, we sacrifice the capacities they replace. Mesmer would call this induced dependency. Some of his patients became so accustomed to treatments that they couldn't function without them. They'd lost confidence in their own inner resources. Temporary support became a permanent crutch. AI systems are creating this dynamic at civilizational scale. They don't force us to use them. They just make not using them feel unnecessarily difficult. The person who relies on AI can produce more, work faster. If you try to compete without these tools, you're at a disadvantage. Here's Mesmer's test. Does the system enhance your agency and autonomy, or does it gradually replace them? Does it help you think more clearly, or does it think instead of you? Does it support independent judgment, or does it atrophy that capacity through disuse? Most of our AI use fails this test. We're not augmenting our thinking, we're outsourcing it. And the more we outsource, the harder it becomes to think without assistance. The dependency deepens. Mesmer's group sessions revealed that trance states are contagious. When one patient fell into crisis, others would follow. Shared expectation, emotional resonance, and collective attention amplified the effect enormously. He called this rapport collectif, collective rapport. A skeptic alone might resist, but in a room full of people already in trance, even skeptics would often succumb. Now imagine Mesmer observing modern social media. Billions of people connected in real-time networks, all exposed to similar algorithmic influences, all amplifying each other's responses. When something goes viral, a conspiracy theory, a moral panic, it can sweep across the planet in hours. This is mass mesmerism at unprecedented scale. AI systems aren't neutral carriers of information. They actively promote content that generates engagement, which usually means the most emotionally intense, divisive material. They pour fuel on fires of collective emotional contagion, because that's what their objective functions reward. In Mesmer's time, even group trances were limited in scope and duration. People would eventually leave the session, return to normal life, regain perspective. The trance would fade. But if the collective trance is continuous, if people are constantly immersed in these emotional contagions through their devices, then there's no return to baseline consciousness. The trance becomes the new normal. This is particularly concerning for young people who've never known anything else. Someone raised in constant algorithmic stimulation has no baseline to return to, no memory of consciousness without digital influence. If we're collectively hypnotized by algorithmic systems, how do we wake up? Mesmer's approach required two things. First, recognition. The patient had to recognize they were in a trance and that it was no longer serving them. This is difficult because trances are comfortable. Second, rehabilitation. A gradual process of relearning to function without the influence, of rebuilding atrophied capacities. Cognitive physical therapy, uncomfortable but necessary. Applied to our situation. Cultivate awareness of influence. Notice when you're being nudged by algorithmic systems. Pay attention to what has your attention. That disoriented feeling after hours of scrolling. That's you waking up from a trance. Practice capacity preservation. Deliberately use abilities that AI systems cause to atrophy. Navigate without the app sometimes. Write without the assistant. Think through problems without immediately searching for answers. Yes, this is less efficient. That's the point. You're rebuilding muscle. Create unmesmerized spaces. Preserve areas where algorithmic influence is minimized. Times without devices. Activities requiring sustained attention. Relationships existing outside digital mediation. Demand better design. Push for AI systems designed to support eventual independence, rather than permanent dependency. Good medicine cures the patient. Good AI should strengthen human capacities, not replace them. But individual awakening may not be enough. If you personally limit AI use while everyone else maximizes it, you're at a competitive disadvantage. This is why individual awakening must become collective awakening. We need social norms around human autonomy and cognitive capacity. Franz Mesmer died in 1815, dismissed as a charlatan, but he discovered that human consciousness is far more malleable, far more susceptible to external influence than Enlightenment rationality wanted to admit. Today, we're building systems of unprecedented power to influence human consciousness. We call them recommendation algorithms, engagement platforms, artificial intelligence. But Mesmer would recognize what they really are: invisible forces that bypass rational deliberation to shape how we think, feel, and act. The question isn't whether these systems influence us. They obviously do. The question is whether we'll guide that influence consciously, with wisdom and restraint, or whether we'll sleepwalk into a future we never consciously chose. Mesmer's final wisdom: the limits of your awareness are the limits of your freedom. Wake up while there's still time to choose.